The alarm did not sound like the usual patrol alerts. It came in short, broken pulses, like something was trying to speak and kept losing its voice. Deep inside the command ship Ravenhold, an officer named Doris stared at his screen and blinked twice, thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him. The signal from Nyx, the Empire's most dangerous shadow beast, had gone dark. For 300 years, the Velmari Empire had ruled the stars using creatures like Nyx. These beasts were grown in secret labs, built from ancient predator genes and twisted with machines until they became something no natural world could produce. They were larger than transport ships, fast as falling stars, and able to vanish into shadow itself. Soldiers who faced them rarely lived to describe what they saw. Entire rebellions had ended the moment a shadow beast was released into a battlefield. Fear was the true weapon. The claws and teeth were only the delivery. Nyx was the worst of them all, or rather, the best, depending on which side of the leash a person stood on. It had crushed 3 uprisings alone. Its name was used to frighten children on a dozen worlds. And now, according to every sensor in the Empire's tracking network, it simply did not exist anymore. Doris did not want to be the one who reported this. But silence would be worse than bad news, so he opened a channel to the Beastmaster in charge of Nyx. Her name was Kaya Thran, and she had bonded with Nyx since it was young, back when it was barely larger than a transport pod. She was resting in her quarters when the alert reached her, her boots off, her long coat draped over a chair. She read the message twice before she stood up. "That's not possible," she said to no one. The neural bond she shared with Nyx was not just a tracking signal. It was a deeper connection, threaded into her mind through imperial implants. She could usually feel the beast the way a person feels their own heartbeat, distant but always present. She reached for that feeling now, searching for it in the quiet corners of her thoughts. There was nothing, not even static, just an empty space where something enormous used to be. Kaya moved fast after that. She pulled her boots back on, grabbed her coat, and marched down the corridor toward the command deck, ignoring the way her hands had started to shake. She had trained her whole life not to feel fear, but this was different. This was not the fear of an enemy. This was the fear of an absence, a hole where certainty should be. On the bridge, the atmosphere was tense in a way she had never experienced before. Officers spoke in low voices. Screens flickered with data no one understood. An admiral named Vorith stood near the main console, arms crossed, his expression carved from stone. "Explain this to me," he said the moment Kaya stepped through the door. "Your beast has vanished. No blood, no wreckage, no struggle recorded on any drone in the sector. It simply stopped existing on our systems." "I don't have an answer yet," Kaya admitted, "but I will find one." "You had better," Vorith said. "Do you understand what this means if word spreads? If the colonies learn that a shadow beast disappeared without explanation, they will start asking if these creatures can be defeated. Or worse, if they can escape." Kaya said nothing. She understood exactly what he meant. The power of the shadow beasts came from fear, and fear only worked as long as people believed it was absolute. A single crack in that belief could grow into something the Empire could not control. "You will lead the search," Vorith continued. "Personally, you will find Nyx, and you will bring back proof of what happened, whether that proof is the beast itself or its remains. Fail, and I will not need to explain what happens next." She left the bridge and gathered her search team. 3 soldiers who had worked with shadow beasts before and knew how dangerous a search like this could become. Within the hour, their shuttle launched toward the last known coordinates of Nyx's signal, a quiet sector near a recently conquered human world. The Empire had only recently subdued this world during a short and brutal campaign. Its people had been stubborn, resisting occupation with a kind of quiet defiance that unsettled even veteran soldiers. Kaya had read the reports. Humans did not break the way other conquered species did. They bent, sometimes, but rarely broke completely. As the shuttle descended through the atmosphere, Kaya stared out the viewport at the green fields and scattered farmhouses below. Somewhere down there, in the middle of nowhere, the trail to Nyx would begin. She did not know yet that the truth waiting for her was far stranger and far more dangerous to the Empire than anything she could imagine. The shuttle's engines roared as it began its final approach toward a small farming settlement called Dawnreach. Dust rose behind the shuttle as it landed on the dirt road just outside Dawnreach. The settlement was small, a scatter of wooden houses and barns surrounded by fields of grain that swayed gently in the wind. Smoke rose from a few chimneys. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked twice and went quiet. It looked peaceful, almost too peaceful for a place that had been conquered by force only months earlier. Kaya stepped out first, her boots sinking slightly into the soft ground. Behind her, 3 Imperial soldiers followed, scanning the area with the careful eyes of people trained to expect danger everywhere. The humans of Dawnreach did not run or scream at the sight of them, which surprised Kaya. They simply stopped what they were doing and watched, their faces unreadable, their eyes cold but calm. That calm bothered her more than fear would have. Fear was familiar. Fear was something the Empire had learned to use for centuries. This quiet, steady defiance was something else entirely, something she did not have a name for yet. An old man approached from one of the fields, wiping dirt from his hands onto his trousers. He introduced himself as Harlan, the closest thing Dawnreach had to a leader, though he was quick to say the settlement did not believe much in leaders anymore. "You're here about the noise," Harlan said, before Kaya could even ask a question. "What noise?" Kaya said. "Something big moved through the fields near my land 2 weeks back. Tore up half a fence and scared my animals half to death. Haven't seen hide nor hair of it since, but the tracks were real enough." Kaya felt her pulse quicken. 2 weeks matched the timing almost exactly with when Nyx's signal had vanished. "Show me," she said. Harlan led them past rows of houses, past children who stopped their games to stare, past women hanging laundry who paused just long enough to watch the soldiers pass before returning to their work, refusing to give the Empire the satisfaction of visible fear. Kaya noticed all of it, filing each detail away, though her mind kept circling back to the tracks Harlan had promised to show her. At the edge of his land stood a barn, old but sturdy, its wooden boards weathered gray by years of sun and rain. Behind it, deep gouges scarred the earth, long claw marks pressed into the soil with a depth that made one of Kaya's soldiers whistle low under his breath. "That's not something small," the soldier muttered. Kaya knelt beside the marks, running her fingers along the edge of one groove. The size and shape matched Nyx perfectly. She closed her eyes and reached again for the neural bond, searching for even the faintest trace of the beast's presence. Still nothing. Whatever had happened to Nyx, it had somehow severed that connection completely, not just hidden it. "Anyone hurt?" she asked without looking up. "No," Harlan said. "Strange thing is, nothing was hurt. Just the fence and some scared chickens. Whatever came through here didn't attack anybody." That detail struck Kaya as odd. Shadow beasts did not wander through settlements without leaving destruction behind. They did not pass quietly. Something about this did not fit the creature she thought she knew. She ordered her team to search the surrounding area, spreading out to check nearby barns, sheds, and fields for any further sign of the beast. Harlan watched them work with his arms crossed, offering no more help than he had already given, though he did not interfere either. While the soldiers searched, Kaya's eyes drifted toward a smaller house near the edge of Harlan's land. A boy stood in the doorway, watching her with wide, curious eyes instead of fear. He looked to be about 7 years old, thin, with dirt smudged across his cheek and a mop of messy brown hair. Unlike the other children, he did not run inside when she looked at him. He simply tilted his head slightly, as if trying to figure her out. Kaya nodded, though something about the boy's steady gaze unsettled her in a way she could not explain. She turned back to the search, telling herself it was nothing, just a curious child unaware of how dangerous the world had become. The search continued until sunset without finding anything more than the claw marks and a few scattered signs that something heavy had moved through the area more than once. As the sky turned orange and the fields fell into shadow, Kaya ordered her team back to the shuttle to regroup and plan their next move. She did not know that only a short distance away, hidden inside the old barn behind Harlan's fence, something massive lay curled in the darkness, its enormous chest rising and falling slowly, calmly, as a small voice hummed a quiet tune nearby, unafraid of the monster the entire Empire feared. 2 weeks earlier, before any alarms had sounded on the Ravenhold, the night had been quiet over Dawnreach. Ren could not sleep. He often could not, ever since his parents died during the fighting, so he had taken to sneaking out to the barn after his grandfather fell asleep. just to sit somewhere that did not feel so empty. That was the night everything changed. He heard it before he saw it, a low sound like thunder rolling far away, except it did not fade. It grew closer and closer, until the ground itself seemed to shiver beneath his feet. Ren should have run. Every instinct in his small body told him to run back to the house and hide under his bed the way he used to when storms passed through. Instead, he stood frozen at the barn door, watching as something enormous stumbled out of the tree line at the edge of the field. It was massive, larger than any animal he had ever seen, its body covered in dark fur that seemed to drink in the moonlight rather than reflect it. One of its legs dragged awkwardly behind it, and dark liquid trailed from a wound along its side. It moved like something in terrible pain, its breathing ragged and uneven, until it finally collapsed near the edge of the fence, too exhausted to go any further. Ren knew he should have screamed. He knew he should have woken his grandfather. But something about the creature's eyes, glowing faintly in the darkness, did not look cruel. They looked tired. They looked, strangely enough, afraid. He crept closer, step by careful step, ignoring every warning in his head. When he was close enough to touch it, the creature let out a low growl, though it did not move to attack. It simply watched him, its enormous chest rising and falling with each labored breath. "You're hurt," Ren whispered, more to himself than to the beast. He did not know why he said it. He did not know why he stayed. But something about the creature reminded him of a wounded dog he once found near the edge of the fields, back before the fighting started, back when the world still made sense. He had helped that dog. Maybe he could help this too. Over the following nights, Ren returned again and again, sneaking scraps of food and cloth from the house, cleaning the wound as best a child could, even though the injury was far too large for him to properly treat. The creature never hurt him. It watched him with something like curiosity, sometimes letting out a low sound that almost resembled a purr whenever he spoke softly to it. He named it Nyx, not knowing that name already belonged to it, chosen long ago by scientists who saw it only as a weapon. To Ren, the name simply felt right, quiet and dark like the shadows the creature seemed to belong to. As the days passed, something strange began to happen. Deep inside the creature's mind, buried under years of forced obedience and neural conditioning, something shifted. The bond that once tied it completely to the will of the Empire had been damaged during whatever accident brought it crashing into these fields. For the first time since its creation, Nyx was not being told what to feel. It was simply feeling, on its own, without command. And what it felt, more than anything, was safety. A small, gentle presence that did not fear it, that returned night after night with kindness instead of chains. It was something entirely new, something the Empire's scientists never accounted for when they built their perfect weapon. Ren did not understand any of this, of course. He only knew that the creature liked when he hummed old songs his mother used to sing before she died. He only knew it curled protectively around the barn whenever storms rolled through, as if guarding him from the wind and rain. He only knew that, for the first time since the fighting took his parents, he did not feel quite so alone. He told no one, not even his grandfather. He knew, somehow, that the world was not ready to understand a friendship like this. The Empire hunted creatures like Nyx. The colony feared things it could not explain. So he kept the secret close, sneaking away each night to sit beside the massive, gentle shadow that slept beside his barn. On the night Kaya's shuttle first landed in Dawnreach, Ren felt his stomach twist with worry. He had seen the soldiers march through the settlement, their eyes sharp and searching. He knew, somehow, exactly what they were looking for. That night, he crept out to the barn earlier than usual, pressing his small hand against Nyx's massive side. "You have to hide," he whispered. "Please, just a little longer." The great beast lifted its head, meeting his eyes in the darkness, and for a moment, it seemed almost as if it understood. Morning came slower than usual, or maybe it just felt that way to Kaya, who had barely slept after the previous day's search. She sat inside the shuttle, going over her notes for the third time, trying to make sense of details that refused to fit together. Claw marks the right size. No blood beyond the initial wound site. No destruction beyond a single fence. A beast capable of leveling buildings had apparently wandered through a farming settlement and done almost nothing. None of it matched the creature she knew. She decided to return to Harlan's land alone this time. leaving her soldiers to continue searching the wider perimeter. Something about the place nagged at her, a feeling she could not quite explain, like a puzzle piece sitting just out of reach. As she approached the old barn again, she noticed something she had missed the day before. The grass near the barn door was flattened in a wide, curved pattern, the kind of shape left behind by something large resting there repeatedly, not just passing through. Fresh drag marks led toward the barn itself, still damp with morning dew. Her pulse quickened. She moved closer, one hand resting on the weapon at her hip out of habit rather than immediate intention. That was when she saw the boy. Ren stood near the barn door, his small body positioned slightly in front of the entrance, as if trying to block her view without making it obvious. His eyes were wide, but he did not run. He stood his ground, small fists clenched at his sides. "You shouldn't be here," Kaya said carefully, studying him. "This is my grandpa's land," Ren replied, his voice shaking slightly, though he did not step aside. Kaya's eyes moved past him toward the barn. She could hear something now, a low, deep breathing sound coming from inside, far too large to belong to any farm animal. Her stomach tightened. "Step aside," she said, more firmly this time. Ren did not move. Kaya took a step forward, reaching to push the barn door open, when a low growl rumbled from the darkness inside, deep enough that she felt it vibrate through the ground beneath her boots. A moment later, something massive emerged from the shadows, ducking low to fit through the barn entrance, positioning itself directly between Kaya and the boy. It was Nyx. Kaya's breath caught in her throat. The creature looked thinner than before, a healing wound visible along its side, but there was no mistaking the size, the shape, the deep black fur that seemed to swallow the morning light around it. She reached instinctively for the neural bond, expecting to finally feel that familiar connection return now that she stood so close. Nothing happened. "Nyx," she said slowly, testing the name aloud. "Stand down." The beast did not move. Kaya's hand tightened around her weapon, though some part of her, the part that had raised this creature since it was small enough to fit in her arms, hesitated to draw it fully. "Please don't hurt him," Ren said suddenly, stepping out from behind Nyx's massive frame despite the danger, positioning himself protectively in front of the beast instead. "He's my friend. He didn't hurt anybody. He was just hurt and scared, and I helped him." Kaya stared at the boy, then at the creature standing guard behind him, and felt something inside her shift, though she could not yet name what it was. Every report she had ever read about shadow beasts described them as mindless weapons, incapable of loyalty beyond forced neural commands. Yet here stood Nyx, defying direct commands, protecting a child with something that looked unmistakably like devotion. "How long has it been here?" Kaya asked quietly. 2 weeks, Ren admitted. "He was hurt bad. I just wanted to help." Kaya looked between the boy and the beast, her mind racing through possibilities that all seemed impossible only days earlier. A malfunction during patrol could explain the severed connection. It might also explain something far more dangerous to the Empire's control, a break in the neural conditioning itself, leaving Nyx with something the Empire never intended to create: free will. She lowered her weapon slowly, though she did not holster it completely, her mind still struggling to process the impossible scene in front of her. "I need to think," she said, mostly to herself. "Nobody moves. Nobody says anything to my soldiers. Do you understand?" Ren nodded quickly, relief flooding his young face, while Nyx remained still, watching Kaya with those same steady golden eyes, waiting to see what she would decide. The report Kaya sent back to the Ravenhold that evening was carefully worded, technically true, and deliberately incomplete. She confirmed that Nyx had been located alive near Dawnreach, suffering from injuries consistent with a neural malfunction during patrol. She did not mention the boy. She did not mention that the beast had refused a direct command. She told herself she needed more time to understand the situation before revealing everything. Though a quieter part of her already suspected she was protecting something she did not want the Empire to destroy. Admiral Vorith, however, was not a patient man. Within hours, a team of Imperial scientists arrived from a nearby research vessel, eager to examine the malfunction firsthand. Kaya stood nearby, arms crossed, as they ran scans on Nyx from a careful distance, the beast watching them with quiet suspicion but no aggression. The results came back within the day, and they were worse than Kaya had feared. The neural malfunction had not simply disrupted tracking signals. It had severed the deepest layer of conditioning embedded in Nyx since before it was even fully grown, the layer responsible for forced obedience itself. In simple terms, the scientists explained, Nyx was no longer being controlled. It was choosing its own actions, for the first time in its entire existence. The lead scientist, a nervous man named Corwin, delivered the news to Vorith through a secure channel, with Kaya standing silently beside the console, listening to every word. "This isn't isolated," Corwin explained, his voice tight with worry. "If a malfunction like this can happen once, it can happen again. Every shadow beast in the Empire's arsenal relies on the same conditioning framework. If word spreads that this can be broken, especially through something as simple as prolonged contact with an unafraid subject, we could be looking at a crisis across 100 worlds." Vorith's expression darkened on the screen. "Are you telling me a child broke Imperial conditioning simply by being kind to it?" "In essence, yes," Corwin admitted. "The bond formed with the human boy appears to have filled the void left by the severed obedience protocols. Trust, given freely, replaced forced control. It should not be possible, but the data doesn't lie." Vorith was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tightening. When he spoke again, his voice was cold and final. "Then the beast is a threat to the entire program. If this spreads, if other beasts learn this is possible, we lose control of our greatest weapon across every colony we hold. It cannot be allowed to exist, and it certainly cannot be allowed to be studied by outsiders who might replicate the process." Beastmaster Thren. Kaya straightened. "Yes, Admiral. You raised this creature. You will end it. Personally, I want confirmation of the kill before the day is finished, and I want the boy detained for questioning regarding how this bond was formed. Do you understand your orders?" Kaya's chest tightened, but her voice remained steady. "Understood, Admiral." The channel closed, leaving Kaya alone with the weight of what she had just been ordered to do. She walked slowly back toward the barn where Nyx had been resting under guard, her mind spinning through every possible option, none of them good. Refusing the order meant certain punishment, likely worse than demotion. Following it meant destroying the creature she had raised since it was small enough to sleep curled beside her, and taking a frightened child from the only stability he had left after losing everything else. When she arrived, the sun was beginning to set, painting the fields in soft orange light. She found Ren sitting quietly beside the barn, his small hand resting against Nyx's massive side, both of them still, peaceful, unaware of the storm gathering above them. Nyx lifted its head as she approached, golden eyes meeting hers with a calm steadiness that unsettled her more than any snarl or attack ever could. It did not look like a weapon anymore. It looked, impossibly, like something that trusted her. "Are you going to hurt him?" Ren asked softly. Kaya stood there for a long moment, her weapon heavy at her side, the weight of her orders pressing down on her shoulders like a physical thing. She thought of the empire she had served her entire life, the fear it demanded, the control it could not survive without. She thought of Nyx as a cub, small and trembling, conditioned before it ever had the chance to be anything else. And she thought of this boy, who had given a monster something the entire empire never could. Kindness, freely given. She did not answer his question right away. Instead, she knelt down slowly beside them both, setting her weapon on the ground between them, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she allowed herself to simply feel the weight of the choice in front of her. The weapon lay untouched on the ground between them as the last light of evening faded into deep blue shadow. Ren watched Kaya carefully, his hand still resting against Nyx's side, unsure what her silence meant. Nyx remained still as well, its golden eyes never leaving her face, patient in a way that felt almost unnatural for a creature bred entirely for violence. "You could have killed him already," Ren said quietly. "Why didn't you?" Kaya did not answer immediately. She stared at the beast she had raised from a small, trembling cub, remembering years of training sessions where fear was drilled into it as thoroughly as obedience, where every soft instinct was stripped away and replaced with commands. She had told herself, back then, that this was simply how things worked. Weapons did not need kindness. Weapons needed control. But the creature in front of her now was not simply a weapon anymore. It was something new, something that had chosen gentleness the moment it was finally given the freedom to choose anything at all. Because I don't think I can, Kaya finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. And I don't think I want to. She thought of Admiral Vortha's cold instructions, the demand for confirmed death, the order to take Ren for questioning as though he were nothing more than a variable to study rather than a grieving child who had simply been kind to something wounded and afraid. She thought of everything the Empire had built across 100 worlds, all of it resting on the assumption that fear was the only language creatures like Nyx could ever understand. That assumption, she realized now, kneeling in the dirt beside a boy and a monster who trusted each other completely, had always been wrong. Kaya reached up slowly and disabled the tracking beacon woven into her own uniform, the device responsible for reporting her location and status back to the Ravenhold. It powered down with a soft click, cutting the final thread connecting her to the ship above. Whatever she chose next, there would be no easy path back from it. "What are you doing?" Ren asked, watching her closely. "Making a choice," Kaya said, "that I probably should have made a long time ago." She spent that night crafting a report unlike any she had ever written before, describing a difficult confrontation, a beast too dangerous and unstable to safely capture, and a determination she claimed to have carried out personally before the creature could cause further harm. She falsified evidence carefully, drawing on years of technical knowledge to make the fabricated destruction convincing enough to withstand initial scrutiny. It would not hold forever. Eventually, someone would ask questions, but it would buy time, and time was the only thing she could offer them now. By morning, Kaya had made arrangements with Harlan, who listened to her explanation with a long, considering silence before finally nodding, understanding perhaps better than anyone the value of protecting something fragile from a world too eager to destroy it. Dawnreach was remote, its people quietly resistant to Imperial oversight already. It would not be an easy place to keep a secret, but it might be possible. Weeks passed slowly and carefully. Kaya stayed, no longer an Imperial Beastmaster, but something closer to a protector, teaching Ren how to care for Nyx safely, while helping the beast relearn instincts long buried under years of conditioning. Nyx, in turn, seemed to grow stronger each day, no longer hiding in shadows out of necessity, but choosing to walk openly through the fields beside the boy who had saved it. Word traveled slowly through certain quiet channels, the kind of whispers that moved between conquered worlds too soft for Imperial ears to catch easily. Stories of a place where a shadow beast lived freely beside a human child, unchained not by force, but by simple, patient kindness. Some dismissed it as rumor. Others, particularly those who had lost loved ones to conditioned monsters much like Nyx once was, began to wonder if such freedom might be possible elsewhere too. Months later, on a quiet evening much like the one where everything began, Kaya stood near the edge of Harlan's fields, watching Ren walk beside Nyx through tall grass turned golden by the setting sun. Behind them, in the distant tree line, faint movement stirred, another shape emerging slowly from the shadows, drawn by whatever strange signal traveled between creatures once bound entirely by fear. Kaya allowed herself a small, tired smile. The Empire believed control was the only thing holding its power together across 100 worlds. Perhaps, she thought, watching a boy and a monster walk together without a single command between them, that belief was about to be tested in ways the Empire had never imagined possible. The stars above Dawnreach glittered quietly, indifferent to empires or rebellions, as somewhere out among them, the first small crack had already begun to spread.